Religious communities, climate change, call to action. In a world constantly feeling the growing pressure of climate change, research shows that those with a higher level of religious commitment, as measured by self-reports of religion's personal importance, frequency of religious service attendance, and frequency of prayer, often have a lower level of environmental concern. Religious communities have become increasingly polarized on issues of climate change and environmental regulation, and many say that it can be difficult to navigate faith and climate change. This opinion survey, taken in November of 2014, shows the varied levels of concern by different religious affiliations regarding climate change in America specifically. White evangelical Protestants, mainline Protestants, and Catholics are the three religious groups with the least amount of concern for climate change, while non-Christian religions alone express the most amount of concern for climate change. While some common responses to these statistics may be, well, religion has nothing to do with climate change anyway, right? God's in control, not us. Who cares? The world's going to end anyway. Or even, how can climate change be real if there's always going to be a winter and summer? Climate change is not just a scientific or political issue. It is also an issue of right and wrong, and both the current and future well-being of our entire planet and its people. Every faith, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, has an obligation to keep their eyes open and be responsible to take action against the negative impacts of the climate and care for their neighbors, especially because in the end, no one will have a choice. Scientists warn that the current global response to climate change is insufficient, that transformative changes are needed to restore and protect nature. Urbanization has increased tenfold in the past century. In a few generations, mankind is exhausting the fossil fuels that were generated over several 100 million years. Around 1 million animal and plant species are now threatened with extinction, many within decades, more than ever before in human history. More than 85% of wetlands present in 1700 was lost by 2000. Loss of wetlands is currently 3 times faster in percentage terms than forest loss. Scientists also tell us that climate change is fast, much faster than it seems almost anyone has the capacity to recognize and acknowledge. The UN's recent climate report warned that without unprecedented action, catastrophic conditions could arrive by 2040. The rise of temperatures will soon cause the collapse of the ice sheets that will eventually flood not only Miami, but also Shanghai and Hong Kong and thousands of cities across the world, displacing millions of people. Furthermore, 400 million people will suffer from water scarcity, and even in northern latitudes, heat waves will kill thousands each summer. And for the first time in history, humans, not natural cycles or the sun, are the main cause of this change. 75% of terrestrial environment has been severely altered to date by human actions. What's worse, the areas of the world projected to experience significant negative effects from global changes in climate, biodiversity, ecosystem functions, and nature's contributions to people are also areas in which large concentrations of indigenous peoples and many of the world's poorest communities reside. While we can't ignore the fact that some people of faith disagree about climate change, especially in the US, many current faith leaders are making positive steps to remove the stigma that there is a conflict between religion and science over climate change. In fact, most religious communities have released statements on climate change and the need to care for creation. A 2008 Southern Baptist Declaration about global warming said, "Humans must be proactive and take responsibility for our contributions to climate change, however great or small." A 2016 statement signed by 232 evangelical pastors in 44 states said, "Love of God, love of neighbor, and the demands of stewardship are more than enough reason for evangelical Christians to respond to the climate change problem with moral passion and concrete action. And nearly 4 years ago, Pope Francis released a groundbreaking letter, Laudate Si, on the care of our common home, calling on the world and its 1.2 billion Catholics to curb man-made global warming. He said, "We are presently witnessing a disturbing warming of the climatic system. Humanity is called to recognize the need for changes in lifestyle, production, and consumption in order to combat this warming, or at least the human causes." Religious texts proclaim how God is love and that people need to make sure they do the right thing, not just for the planet, but for people as well. In fact, every major faith tradition calls us to do 2 things. First, to care for the earth, and second, to care for our neighbors and those who are most vulnerable. Climate change impacts both of those. Science can tell us the climate is changing and why, but faith comes from the heart. It guides people and helps them make decisions on how to act. Science, therefore, is not a replacement for faith, but rather a tool. If humanity is here to care for our neighbors, especially the neighbors who will feel the effects of climate change more than most, faith-filled people should be some of the first in line to demand action on climate change. Faith and science are not in competition. The Bible, Torah, and Quran are not science textbooks, but are meant to be used as guides to give perspective on where people come from, where they're going, and how to live their lives. Both data from scientists and sacred texts from faith-filled people on climate change all paint the same picture. This is the only planet we have. It makes sense to care for it and our brothers and sisters who are impacted by it. The entire world is a global family, and we are all called to take care of it.